Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Thursday, July 25th, 2019. Hard to believe that we are already almost through the month of July and heading into August. So summer, once quoted by Jim Morrison, is almost gone, folks. And let's get started with tonight's show with some space weather news. Solar wind speed sitting at 358.3 kilometers per second with a density of 3.2. Sunspot number 11. Actually, this is old data. I apologize on that. We are 2 days in a row without sunspots right now. That's sunspot 0 at the time being, for 134 days without sunspots in 2019. And the TCI kind of leveling out a little bit at the 2.84, but not going up too much further from that, as we've watched it over the past several days between 2.76 and 2.84. And let's go ahead and check out our space weather section here on the grandsolarminimum.com. Nothing to talk about as far as solar flares, X-ray flux, proton flux, KP indices are sitting at a 1. We've had it as low as 0 at times. And let's take a look at the SDO, and a little bit of rock and roll in here by the SDO. It does its every now and again adjustment, barrel roll, should we say. There's the coronal hole that we talked about a couple of days ago, and let's bring out my favorite, the handy dandy arrow. All right, so this was the coronal hole that we were talking about a few shows back that we saw on the far end of the eastern limb when we checked out the reverse side of our star a few days ago. And so far it's holding steady at the equatorial region, decent size, nothing majorly huge. I'd have to say, if this continues to stay where it's at, the effects from this should be pretty minor. G1 activity possible. Also looking at solar wind speeds, probably kicking it up a bit, about upper 500s possible at the most. Other than that, though, we don't have a lot to report on from our sun. No sunspots, no CMEs, some weak corona, some very bright region coming in over the eastern limb, but that is not sunspot activity at this time. And let's take a look into our crystal ball here. As we look at the eastern limb, there's that coronal hole. There's another one behind that before the eastern limb. So possibility of 2 geomagnetic storms within 10 days apart is very likely from this next upcoming coronal hole. The other one that is just beyond the eastern limb as we speak appears to be a little bit bigger, and it has a little bit longer stretch from northern hemisphere to southern hemisphere. So we'll keep an eye on that. We might be just getting an appetizer with this first coronal hole that we have to deal with. And there is another one that could be forming on the horizon just behind the eastern limb. And let's go ahead and take a look at our TSI reading for July 15th. Is that what that says? Yeah, July 16th, coming in at 1360.674. Last time we did a broadcast and showed the TSI, we were sitting at the 1360.62 region. So again, we don't see a lot of decrease from TSI. That's pretty normal. And if we have to follow graphs and cycles, just by looking at the previous information right here, it would appear that we are getting ready to go into a bit of an uptick in TSI according to this pattern. So we will have to wait and see. But again, TSI is very, very, very little change. Just about every time we report it, it's very rare that we see a huge dip in TSI at one period in time. All right, so let's get started with tonight's articles that we are presenting to you tonight. Here's the first few from Watchers.news. As always, an unusually strong cold front for the time of year to hit much of the southern United States on July 24th and the 25th, bringing record low July temperatures to numerous cities throughout the region. Lower temperatures will continue across the region through the rest of the week. And we definitely have felt it here in upstate New York. Now, interesting enough, when you look at this map here, the part of the state that I live in is actually in the light blue. But it is definitely refreshing nonetheless. Low temperatures have been in the low 50s, and it's almost where you can't sleep with the window open at night. So it's kind of nice, but definitely a touch of fall for some of us out there in the Northeast. But for this time of year, for temperatures to be like this, numerous cities experienced record low temperatures on the 24th of July, including a 58-degree low in Altus, Oklahoma, Decatur, Alabama, and Salina, Kansas hit 61 degrees Fahrenheit. And I can tell you right now, folks, I've been out in Kansas in that part where Salina is in western Kansas. 61 degrees in the morning is quite impressive. At that time of year, your normal temperature in the morning out there is 70 to 75 degrees. This time of year is not unheard of to see temperatures in the 110s. That's real surface temperatures, by the way. Again, we're talking about a dry heat out here, but still, very, very low temperature in the morning for this time of year especially. July 25th brought record low temperatures, 59 degrees in San Angelo, Texas, breaking a previous record of 60 degrees Fahrenheit. 58 degrees in Austin, breaking its previous record of 67. So they shattered their record. 2000, which it's, you know, what, 17, here we go, 9 degrees. I can't add 11 degrees difference. Sorry, folks. That's a lot. In the last 19 years, 11 degrees. Some of these records are being broke by just a degree or half a degree. 60 degrees in Little Rock, Arkansas, breaking its previous record of 61, so not that big of a deal. But we are seeing a trend here. There was some records set in 2000, almost 19 years ago, which, by the way, I want to mention just because it's fresh on my mind with this 19-year cycle, 18-year cycle as well. Talking about there's a strong lunar cycle that's also happening at this moment in time, which also happens to correlate with cooling on the planet. So many things are happening with our planet right now. There's so many different ingredients to throw into the pot when we're talking about climate. It's not just one. I mean, we all know that the sun drives the climate. I mean, that's the #1 driver of everything. And then you throw in all these cycles, and it's just amazing. The more we read about this topic, the more we learn, the more we find out all these cycles that correlate into the same thing. It's crazy. That's all. Just a lot of cycles intermixing with each other. Waco, Texas, 60 degrees. Previous record was back in 1911 with a 65-degree low. Now, I've seen a lot of comments out there for folks who, oh, listen to this. Look at this. Coleman came in at 57 degrees. That's in Alabama, guys. 56 degrees in Fort Payne. Black Creek came in at 57. Cool morning. Indeed. But no, I've seen a lot of comments in the talking about Texas, how much cooler it is this year. Yeah, it's gotten hot a few times, but it is not the normal Texas summer so far. Which, you know, that's been pretty much everywhere in the United States. There's no real part of the United States that's been extreme hot all summer. We're starting to see some heat in the Central Plains, but we'll get into that here in a bit. Europe's had a couple of heat waves, but not lasting that long. Heat waves back in the day, we've discussed this before, 8, 9, 10, 11 days. That's a real heat wave. 3 is the criteria. 90 degrees or higher, considered a heat wave. And this last one that we had here in the U.S., they didn't even talk about actual temps. They were talking about heat indexes, the real feel. So overhyped is one thing. I mean, we really stretched it with this heat wave talk here in the U.S. last week. But refreshing weather right now, low records being broken in July. Okay, so explain to me something, Noah, and others who claim that June was one of the warmest on record and how July is hot. Why are we breaking low temperature records in the end of July? We are approaching the dog days of summer, and we're breaking low temperature records in Texas, guys. I'm not bragging about Ohio hitting 51 degrees or upstate New York hitting 50 degrees. I'm not bragging about. We're showing you guys temperatures in the deep south, 56 degrees on July 25th. And yet, we continue to hear and see all these gloom and doom headlines about global warming and how man has done it. And boy, I have a good show for you guys tonight too. We'll get into all kinds of things. Mainstream media, let's just say that mainstream is kicking it up a notch, folks, with the global warming nonsense. And they're kicking it up from the 12-year mark to now 18 months to live or to get climate change under control. But again, got a good show lined up for you guys. Thank you, Watchers.news, for covering this cold weather outbreak here. And yeah, it's cold. Texas, parts of Texas in the low 60s, upper 50s, July 25th. I wanted to cover this too. Again, these are not usually my forte, fireballs and meteors. I'm not fascinated by them, but they're in the news a lot. A bright fireball streaked through the night sky over the East Coast. The last show we did, we talked about one. I believe it was over, was it Ontario or Ottawa? I don't remember exactly where, but it was Canada. I do apologize here for memory failing me. But the AMS received 256 eyewitnesses reports from Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Maryland, Maine, North Carolina, New Jersey, New York, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Virginia, and Vermont. According to the AMS, and the eyewitness says it lit up the whole beach. One eyewitness said, "We could otherwise see many stars, but the moon was not visible tonight, so it was generally dark out." And just reports all over for meteors, asteroids flying by, close by. But this is almost like a very, very frequent thing we are seeing on Watchers.news. I've noticed here lately that there's been an uptick in reporting on these near-Earth objects passing by, and now we're getting some reports here in on the East Coast. Interesting enough, Mari, some of these reports came out close to the definitely in the capital region near Lake George, and just very light though. So if you lived on the East Coast, very strong sightings. If you lived further inland towards Syracuse or Albany, very light reports of witnessing this in your sky, but still impressive that that many people were still witnessing this. So thanks again to Watchers.news. But here's another volcano activity, guys. An active lava lake at Shishaldin Volcano, aviation color code orange in Alaska. And this happened on July 24th. The last eruption of this volcano took place in 2015 as a VEI-1. Field crews reported an active lava lake and minor spattering within the summit crater during a helicopter overflight. Elevated seismic activity continues similar to past few weeks, along with consistent elevated surface temperatures and satellite images. No lava or ash has erupted outside the summit of the crater at this time. The volcano has a history of a VEI 1 to 3 eruptions dating back to 1824. AVO raised the aviation color code to yellow and the alert level to advisory on July 12, 2019 due to increased seismicity accompanied by elevated surface temperatures at the summit. So just to report another volcano, this is probably what, number 4 in the last 2 weeks that we have seen an alert level being raised, and temperatures, I mean, you could clearly see the lava lake right there. So this volcano has a history, and it, you know, the last time it blew was actually coming out of a solar max as we were declining out of the peak of a solar max. So this blew last time in 2015 as a VEI-1. Interesting to see what's happening right now. Again, no one's saying this is getting ready to blow or it's going to be a big one or anything like that. Just another report, though, of another alert system being raised here on a volcano. And this is probably, I think, the 3rd update we've given on this, and Watchers continues to update the story, so we will continue to report on this as well. But now, last time we reported, we were talking about 300 people. That death toll has now jumped up to more than 650 people were killed since the onset of the annual monsoon across India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Heavy rainfall and resulting floods affected more than 10 million people and forced tens of thousands to evacuate. Officials report that at least over 660 deaths in Bihar, Assam, Maharashtra, and Uttar Pradesh alone. Heavy rainfall and floods are now expected in Kerala, Karnataka, West Bengal, and the Himalayan scheme states. Neighboring Nepal reported at least 94 deaths and 29 people still missing. Bangladesh has 97 deaths due to drowning and lightning strikes, with a third of the country submerged right now. At least 30 people have been killed in Pakistan, and there is lots of video footage here. Every time I play one of the videos, when I show, especially in this region, it seems to affect this channel. So we'll leave the link here at the website. And once again, thanks to Watchers.news for the update on this continuing. Again, this is part of their monsoon season, but they are getting hit hard right now. Rare tornado touches down Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Now, this happened on July 24th, which was Tuesday. This is when this was reported, but the actual tornado hit on Monday, July 23rd, causing widespread destruction in the popular tourist vacation town. Of the 1,253 tornadoes that the U.S. has on an average year, Massachusetts only sees 1. Alaska and Rhode Island see 0. So they just wanted to throw how rare this actually was. Yeah, this was rare. According to the National Weather Service, the damage from the tornado began in Yarmouth and ended in Harwich on Cape Cod. The damage on the Cape was caused by both a tornado and straight-line wind damage. Here's some footage here from an official news channel here. Wow. Now that is straight-line damage right there, folks. This wind just comes in with full force. That's it. Wow. Impressive footage. Again, folks, please make sure you are safe if you are going to film. I think this is probably another angle of this roof being blown off of this apartment building. And at this time, it appears it was just straight line winds that just took it. And a big gust just came down. And maybe this place didn't lose their roof. Again, very rare that this area receives this kind of wind damage. Again, tornadoes don't usually happen here. Trees down everywhere. The greatest amount of damage appears to have occurred in the town of Harwich. The tornado itself touched down in Yarmouth and then touched down again in Harwich with pockets of EF1 damage in both locations. There was extensive tree and power line damage, the National Weather Service had said. Most of the town of Harwich lost power due to the storm. The maximum wind speed for the tornado was 110 miles an hour, which equates a strong EF1 tornado. Once again, thank you, Teo, for your continuous work here at Watchers.news. A lot is going on worldwide. It's hard to keep up with everything, and these guys do a great job over there. All right, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay tuned.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.